Peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome to One by Faith. My name is Imani, and today we will be talking about the 7 ways that I severely reduced my period cramps. If you suffer from terrible PMS, I hope that at least one portion of this video helps you on your healing journey, or if it doesn't, I hope that you share this video with someone who you think it will help. This video will be divided into 2 parts. The first part being my personal story and my journey on how I started on my womb healing journey, I guess we could call it. And then the second part will be the tips and tricks that have worked for me. Before we get started, if you want to see more content like this, like and share this video. Also to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. So yeah, this is my story basically on when I started my period and just kind of my journey and my struggle with PMS and particularly cramping. So I started my period when I was about 9 years old, and I was in the 4th grade. I would say for a while my period, for that first year, my period was not as bad. Like, it was just normal. I just got it, and everything was like perfectly fine for that first year. When I got to 6th grade, that was when the cramps started kicking in, and I was constantly going to the office every single month and, going in the back room, laying on the cot, and the office ladies would give me, like the rice bag they put in the microwave, and I missed a lot of class time because every month I would have to go to the office because my cramps were so excruciating and so debilitating, and I was just in so much pain. And some months I would get sent home because I would throw up because of how bad my cramps were. And at school, if you throw up, they send you home. No ifs, ands, or buts. You gotta get up out of there. When I was 16, about late sophomore year of high school, I saw a gynecologist for the first time because by the time I was 16, my cramps had interrupted so much of my schooling and so much of my life. I wasn't missing like one day. I was missing like 2 to 3 days of school every single time that I got my period, and I was still throwing up a lot of months, and I would still get sent home. So literally all throughout, it's like I think that's like 5 years between like early middle school and my late sophomore year of high school. I do believe I was 16 at the time, where I would throw up almost every month and get sent home. Some months, I'm not gonna lie, I literally didn't even bother going to school if I had got my period that morning because I already knew what it was. Like, I was like, there's no point in trying to stick it out. I just stayed home and just planned on being in pain for the next 2 to 3 days because that was just what was happening. I did end up seeing a gynecologist at 16. It wasn't the greatest experience. My gynecologist was a woman, so that is nice, but at the same time, she was an older Black woman, as my mother is an older Black woman. And unfortunately, when it comes to older Black women, you don't really have much of a say in what happens, and you're not able to have a voice most of the times. And in that experience, I did not have a voice. So when I was in the office with these 2 women, it was almost like I had the illusion of being safe because, I was there with women and Black women. At the same time, I didn't really have much of a say in how I wanted things to go. Also, too, there was no real testing done to see if I had like endometriosis or fibroids or anything like that. And yes, my mother was aware that I was throwing up and everything too, but it just still didn't feel like I was being taken serious. Also, too, just like a quick fix because I was missing so much school. It was kind of like let's just get rid of this so you can get back into school instead of actually getting to the root of the problem. And that's how I ended up on Depo-Provera. With me being on Depo-Provera from the ages 16 to 18, I did not have a period. Life was great. Until I turned 18 and I had decided that I wanted to go out of state for college. And, with the shot, you have to go every couple months. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to go away for college, then I'm just going to get a long-term form of birth control. And that was how I ended up on the Nexplanon, which is like the implant that goes in your arm. and it stays there for like 3 to 5 years, I think. Looking back, I realized that it was just a rebrand of a failed form of birth control, and they just, rebranded it, but that's neither here nor there. And with the Nexplanon, I did have a period. It wasn't as heavy, but the cramps were definitely still there, and they weren't as bad. It was only like 1 day instead of like 2 or 3 days, but it still like interrupted my life. And I didn't end up going away to college. I ended up staying home and just going straight into the workforce. And so it did interrupt my work life because my cramps, for, at least for that day, were so bad to the point where I was having to call in because my cramps were so bad. And of course, as an adult, that's not what we want. Fast forward to the age of 22. That was when the lifespan of the implant was done, and so I was like so tired of my period like taking over my life and having me call into work and other things. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to the depot shot, and my body said absolutely the fuck not. My body was like, no. So my body ended up rejecting it. After I got it, like I didn't really have too much of a period before, but my body was like, no, we are going to have a period. Because I'm like, I shouldn't have a period with this depot. And I had done a couple rounds of it too. And my body was like, no. Like, I could feel my body forcing a period. And at that time too, I had just started stepping into my spirituality. So I definitely got the message. My body was asking me to heal instead of just covering up and getting rid of and dealing with it. Like I needed to get to the root of these issues. It was like a couple months before my 23rd birthday, and I was like, this is my last shot. And so from then, I just didn't go back. I didn't reschedule or anything, and I just let it leave my body. So that about my period journey, I definitely struggled a lot with cramps. Like I said, vomiting, missing work. The cramps were just so excruciating, and yeah, just an all around god awful experience. It was something that I would dread every single month. This is part 2. So these are the 7 tips and tricks. So I will preface this section by saying that a lot of this is through trial and error. I won't be going into a lot of fine details with each and every single point, but just know that it took a lot of trial and error, and I've been on this journey for about 5 years now. So number one, first thing that I did was I stopped taking birth control. Well, I stopped using colonized birth control, and I did plenty of research. I looked at real non-colonized forms of birth controls. I am an herbalist as well, so I ended up looking into, the roots and berries on how to prevent pregnancy, and looking at different forms of natural birth control. I also did read a book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility. If you want to know my thoughts on that book, it is in my previous video where I show you my favorite books for health and wellness. Also, colonized birth control has been proven time and time again to be terrible for women's bodies, like absolutely wreak havoc. And the way that my body was begging me not to take it anymore, I had to honor that and go through the trenches instead of trying to go around them. I also wanted to stop putting all of those harsh chemicals into my body. Speaking of harsh chemicals, the second way that I severely reduced my period cramps is by no longer taking pain medication. Throughout my journey when I was younger, I had tried aspirin, Advil, ibuprofen, Midol, Tylenol. I've tried it all, and the extra strength versions. I was taking an obscene amount of pain medication just for it to not work. Like, it would only provide me a few hours of relief, and that would just to help me sleep, because my body would be so exhausted from the amount of pain that it was enduring. And during my period, I don't really recall me sleeping too much, especially on day 1 and 2, because I was in so much pain. I am very happy that I stopped when I did. Recently, I have discovered the long-term effects of taking pain medication. It definitely wreaks havoc on your kidneys, on your liver, and your intestines, which also leads to gut issues and other things as well. The third way that I severely reduced my period cramps is by cutting out processed foods and eating whole foods. When it comes to my diet, I typically try to do my best to do, an 80-20, 80% eating healthy and 20%, cheats, I guess, but I don't believe in cheats. I just believe in, we live on earth, might as well enjoy ourselves a little bit, but of course, everything is best in moderation. Sometimes I do slip up and it turns into a 70-30, but I have found that being a lot more strict about my diet and not eating processed foods has really changed the game. When I was 21, I had went vegan. It did help a little bit, but I discovered over the years that eating the processed vegan foods wasn't any better. So once I start cutting out the processed foods and the processed vegan foods, like I wasn't eating any more vegan chicken nuggets, no more veggie burgers, the Impossible Burger, had to cut that out real quick. When I stopped eating those processed foods, I noticed that my cramps were just a little bit better. When it came to like the vomiting and other things like that, I don't think I've vomited because of my cramps in a very long time, and I'm very proud of that actually. Especially when I cut out those processed foods, that was when I noticed that the vomiting had really decreased. Because every now and then I would like dry heave and other things like that. I do believe that it was the food and probably my body also rejecting the food that I was eating. As women, our bodies are extremely sensitive during that time of the month. And I have found personally for me that during my period, my body does some nice factory resets and really lets me know of the things that need to stay and the things that need to go. Also, during my research, one thing that I had found is that a lot of people said like, oh, just eat clean like a week or so beforehand and that will help reduce your cramps. Though that was slightly true, I will say that I have found personally that it is better for me to just make it a lifestyle versus like a cleanup week for being loose with my diet for 3 other weeks. So, it's kind of like, it kind of feeds into the diet culture, to me at least, to try to just like clean up real quick to save myself as opposed to just doing something consistently and, that will actually give me the real results that I want. The fourth way that I severely reduce my period cramps is by lowering my sugar intake, and also along with that I cut out white sugar. I do only consume raw cane sugar, or sometimes raw cane turbinado sugar. I believe it has molasses in it, but that would be the only type of sugar that I consume. And if I'm like baking or something, I do opt in for organic powdered sugar as opposed to just regular. And I have tasted a difference. It doesn't taste nearly as processed, and it doesn't have like that sweet taste. And you know what I'm talking about, especially when you get older, and just be sweet. But at least you can eat it more guilt-free. And I've literally had my cramps go away, and then I'm like, oh, my cramps are gone. I'm safe now. I can go eat this sweet. And then it immediately tears me back up an hour or 2 later. So for me, I just avoid eating sweets as much as possible during my period. If I do have sweets, I will do it after. I will not do it during, and I definitely won't do it when I know that my period is like right around the corner. I will not do it because I hate the pain that I'm in when I do have sweets on my period. And that is something that I'm currently still struggling with. Because baby, sweets got a vice grip on me. God. Yeah. Number 5, I started eating more nutrient dense foods and making a lot of substitutions in terms of the food that I'm buying. So for example, instead of me buying white rice, which has very, very, very little nutritional value, it's also, once again, highly processed and bleached and everything, I opt in for eating things like basmati rice or wild rice. Also other things, like quinoa, couscous. I really forced myself to try other foods and other substitutions that were higher in nutritional value, just because, for one, due to my previous diet back when I was younger, before I went vegan, my diet was heinous, I'm not gonna lie to you. And so I recognize now that I'm older, I do need to be more mindful about the nutrition that I am receiving and how everything needs to have some sort of nutritional value. Making those changes has made such a difference because one, I feel better, and two, when I eat food during my period, I don't feel as terrible. Back when I was, eating processed foods, my cramps would come back every single time. So, and I have found over the years that when I eat intentionally and with more nutrient dense foods, especially during my period, and making sure that I'm eating the foods that are best for me during that time of the month as well, because as women we do need to eat differently based on our moon cycles. So because we do need different nutrients at different times, so I make sure that I'm getting what I need during my period time. And my cramps, once they're away, for the most part, they stay pretty cool. Number 6, and this one is the most important, healing the mother wound. When it comes to period cramps, a lot of the times it is a manifestation for women who have mother wounds, especially deep mother wounds. And I do have a very deep mother wound. I did grow up in a very abusive household, emotionally and physically abusive household. And on my healing journey, when I discovered that and I was, unpacking our relationship, I did find a correlation between when my cramps got worse and when our relationship got worse. So when I hit about teenagehood, that's typically when a lot of mothers and daughters start clashing. That was when the abuse started to skyrocket, and that was when my cramps started to get worse. There's something so sacred about the womb space and the connection that women have with their mothers and their grandmothers. And a lot of the times, like through, the womb, we end up receiving our mother's unresolved traumas, even our grandmother's unresolved traumas. Cramps can manifest when we are enduring our own mother trauma as well. If you would like a separate video on how I healed my mother wound, please comment down below. I will gladly make a video about that very soon, if that is something that you guys want to see. But all in all, healing my mother wound has set me free in more ways than one. I will say, the more I unpack things and I heal myself, I can feel at the next period it's either a release or, sometimes it's a little rough, but I'm releasing, or other times it is I'm okay because I did a lot of releasing, a lot of work prior to. So it is really hard. It is a lot, but it is something that I have healed within myself, and I'm very proud of myself for that. I have some bits and pieces to still work on, as my cramps are still kind of up and down. Some months are better than others, but it is all a part of the healing process and trial and error. The seventh and final way that I will be discussing on how I severely reduced my period cramps is by adopting a non-toxic lifestyle. Meaning, I have been on the journey of eliminating as many hormone disruptors and endocrine disruptors as much as possible. So it is a journey. I'm still incorporating more things as I do more research, but the biggest changes that I have made, hold on, let me pull up my list. 1, I make my own toothpaste and my own mouthwash. I switched to natural body care, such as my body butter, and I bathe with African black soap, real African black soap. I use non-toxic cleansers for the house, also for my hair, like shampoo, or I will make my own home cleansers, but if I don't have the time to do that and I need something quick, I will go to the store and I do weigh out my pros and cons, and I try to pick out the best multi-purpose cleaner as possible, the most non-toxic one. Of course, through trial and error, if I like it, I keep it. If I don't and my body's like, then I get rid of it. As of right now, I am enjoying the Mrs. Meyer's brand as my all-purpose cleaner around the house, but I do have other things that I use to clean that are non-toxic. I threw out my microwave. I stopped burning scented candles. So now all of my candles are unscented and I only use them for their spiritual purposes, or if they are scented, it's very, very little, and again, it is only for spiritual purposes. But I will not be burning no Yankee candles or any wax melts. I was really huge on wax melts for a while, but they are loaded with all types of ingredients that are very harmful for us, so I got rid of those. And I make my own laundry detergent. If you want to know more about how household items are extremely toxic to us, there is a documentary on, I believe it's Amazon Prime, and it might be on Netflix, but it is called Stink. And you can learn all about endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors, and how it affects both men and women as well. Yeah, through incorporating all of these things over the years, I have found that my period cramps have severely reduced themselves. I feel that I'm like getting to a really good point where I won't have to worry about cramps too much longer. But in the meantime, between time, I will continue my journey on trial and error and doing the best that I can to live a natural lifestyle and to heal internally and externally so that way I don't have to suffer. I hope that you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to live a more natural lifestyle, do more research as well, and to understand how everything that we have endured manifests it within our own bodies physically. And I hope that this video inspires you to find natural ways of living to reduce your own period cramps and to heal as well. If you have any other topics that you would like me to discuss on this channel, go ahead and comment down below. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to the channel, and I hope you guys have a very wonderful day.